Okay, this is what you might call episode 2 of Treasures of the History of Deism. If you look into Deism, as I said in the last video, you don't have to look very far before you come across Thomas Paine and the Age of Reason. But look a little deeper and you'll come across a man named Herbert of Cherbury, often referred to as the father of English Deism. In the early 17th centuries, when he was writing, he wrote a book called De Veritate. It's published 1624. And what it was very similar to the Age of Reason. It was a challenge of revealed religion and a critique of the idea of revelation. Now, for that reason, I think because of the similarity, it's often viewed as a deistic work, and Herbert of Cherbury is referred to as the father of English Deism. And what we'll look at in this book is very similar, or very dissimilar rather, from Deism. It's not at all something you would imagine, at least in my understanding of what Deism is, not at all something you would imagine a deist writing. Some of you, if you're deists, might disagree, and that's fine. It's certainly not quite an agreed upon word. But this is not De Veritate. De Veritate was published in English finally in 1937, but originally published Latin 1624, and it's impossible to find. I've had my eye out for years for it and never actually came across a copy for sale. This, and that's what's so wild, even the newer, even 1937, I just can't find a copy of it. If anyone knows of one, put in the comments and let me know, because I would love to get just even a modern copy so I can read it. There's a book out there called Deism and Anthology that has excerpts from De Veritate in it, but that's as close as I can get. So this is his autobiography. Written, of course, it wouldn't be an autobiography if it wasn't written by Herbert of Cherbury. So the binding was rebound, or bound at all, you could say, very likely early 19th century. But the book itself, that is contained within this relatively modern binding, is originally printed. Who remembers their Roman numerals? M is 1,000, D is 500, and each C is 100, making these first four 1,700. L is 50, and each X constitutes 10. This is 1770. That's when this was printed. To my knowledge, the first English printing. The first time it was printed in English was 1770. And if you're like me, you think, what kind of man wants this sort of representation of himself in his autobiography? Well, as you see, 1770, this is over 100 years after the death of Herbert of Cherbury. This was published while he wrote his biography. It was published posthumously. It was published after his death, like I said, nearly 100 years. And published primarily by or due to the efforts of Horace Walpole. And he has his little sort of his tribute or attribution of the autobiography is in this sort of statement at the beginning. That's not what we're interested in. My deistic mind, I could say, is interested very much here, the very end of this book. It cuts off, as they say, abruptly when you read about this book in 1624 with his description of publishing De Veritate. Now, this is the full title. As you'll see here, this is the full title of De Veritate. I will not try to pronounce it, but this essentially reads, these first two lines here, they read, "The truth, as is distinguishable from revelation, the probable, the possible, and the false. That's how this translates here. Now, that was the full name of the Veritat book. And what he describes here is that he wrote it, he gave it to two friends of his, which he refers to as great scholars. Hugo Grotius, the great scholar, and Monsieur Tillières, also one of the greatest scholars of his time. And he talks about how they were very in favor of it and urged him to publish it. But now, this is where it gets interesting. The two great persons above mentioned did so highly value it. So pay attention here. If you're familiar with Deism, this is just wild to find this. Again, Herbert of Cherbury, not to my knowledge, ever referred to himself as a deist, but this is still really interesting. The two great persons aforementioned did so highly value it. Yet, as I knew it would meet with much opposition, I did consider whether it was not better for me a while to suppress it. And well, you'll see. Being thus doubtful in my chamber, one fair day in the summer, my casement being open towards the south, the sun shining clear, and no wind stirring, I took my book, De Veritat, in my hand, and kneeling on my knees, devoutly said these words: O thou eternal God, author of the light which now shines upon me, and giver of all inward illuminations, I do beseech thee, of thy infinite goodness, to pardon a greater request than a sinner ought to make. I am not satisfied enough whether I shall publish this book, De Veritat. If it be for thy glory, I beseech thee to give me some sign from heaven. If not, I shall suppress it. I had no sooner spoken these words, but a loud, though yet gentle, noise came from the heavens. For it was like nothing on earth, which did so comfort and cheer me, that I took my petition as granted, and that I had the sign I demanded, whereupon also I resolved to publish my book. This, how strange soever it may seem, I protest before the eternal God is true. Neither am I in any way superfluously deceived herein, since I did not only clearly hear the noise, but in the serenest sky that I ever saw, being without all cloud, did to my thinking see the place from whence it came. This is, he essentially fell to his knees and prayed to God to give him some sign that he should publish his book, De Veritat. He felt his prayer was answered and he published it. One of the earliest challenges to revealed religion. I find this story here, this is the real story, I think, of the entire autobiography to me. This is the most interesting part because of what I talk about, obviously. Anyway, this is 1770 printing of his autobiography, and if you enjoyed this short video and what little information I can provide on Lord Herbert of Cherbury, then let me know. Let me know that you liked it, and I will try to do more videos like this in the future. So, hope you enjoyed it.